Today in Pre-Cal we learned about the unit circle. This is very important to the rest of Pre-Cal and all of Trig, and so it'll be important that eventually you memorize this. The first quiz over this topic will be on Thursday, and we will continue to take those until everyone has gotten an A. There are lots of patterns that will make this easy to memorize, so if you're not good at memorization, it's okay, you can just learn it. This thing is called the unit circle, and what makes it a unit circle is that r is equal to 1, or the radius is equal to 1. I'm going to try to zoom in just a little bit here for you for this first section. So, okay, for the unit circle, first we need to construct the three main reference triangles, and those are the 45-45-90, the 30-60-90, and the 60-30-90, which are really the same, or very similar anyways. And just the thing that makes them different is which piece I take on first. I'm having camera difficulties, just one second. Okay, let's try right there. Okay, the first triangle I'm going to do is a 45-degree triangle. So I'm going to take my compass, I'm going to put the center on the beginning of my line and line this part up as well. And I'm going to make a mark at 45 degrees. I'm going to match those up and connect to make a triangle. And now this one really is a 45-degree angle, as are both of these. The radius is 1, because that's what I told you in the beginning. That's what makes it a unit circle. You'll remember about 45, 45, 90 triangles that the relationship is the sides are x, x, x square root of 2. Since we want 1 to be equal to x square root of 2, x instead will be x over square root of 2, which is 1 over root 2, which is equivalent to root 2 over root 2 if I reduce or simplify my radicals there. This is something that should make sense to you from what we did on the green foldable back in the first semester when we talked about special right triangles. If you'd like more information about that, I'll be happy to talk to you about it in tutorials. I'm not going to go into major detail here because that's not the focus of this lesson. I am, however, going to color this one in. I'm going to highlight these key pieces here. And this triangle I'm going to make blue. In the next triangle, I want to do a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So I'm going to, again, line my compass up. I'm going to make a mark at 30 degrees. I'm going to connect my lines to make a triangle. And guys, you can probably see that I could make my triangle longer if I wanted to continue to extend the lines. I don't, just so that I have room to see some things. It's not quite so cluttered, but you could. Again, my radii is 1. I'm going to pick a different color and trace this one out. The relationship between a 30, 60, 90 triangle is x, x square root of 3, and 2x. So if this one is 1, and this would normally represent 2x, this side would normally represent x. To get back, I'm going to do 1/2. Remember, 1/2 times 2 is 1, so that should make sense. And then x square root of 3 would mean 1/2 times square root of 3, which would be root 3 over 2. So that's what that side is, root 3 over 2. The final triangle is our 60 degree, which is very similar to the one that we just did. The only difference is it's oriented a different way, so I'm flipping it up on its side basically. Make sure that that one is in your view. Go ahead and trace that in a different color. I'm choosing different colors so that you'll be able to see this in a minute when we do our unit circle. Go ahead and label your angles, which are 60 degrees, 30 degrees, 90 degrees. Again, this hypotenuse is 1 because our radius is 1 in any unit circle. The one opposite of 30 is 1/2. And the one opposite of 60 is square root of 3 over 2. All of that follows from this one over here. Okay, I'm going to zoom back out a little bit so we can see the bottom half of the page together. And now we are going to construct our unit circle. To do that, we're going to make a coordinate plane. So a y-axis and an x-axis. We're kind of guesstimating how long that is. We're going to take our compass and we're going to do a 3-inch radii, even though we're going to call it r equals 1. And that r equals 1, the reason that that is true is we're talking about that it's length of 1. We didn't talk about its units. So we haven't said whether it's inches, feet, centimeters, that kind of thing. It doesn't really matter. It's just saying in general that one's equal to 1 whatever. To do this, I put this in this hole right here. I follow my circle all the way around, and now I have a perfect circle, which is good. I'm going to extend these lines a little bit. I probably put mine a little bit high because now it's real close to my triangles, but that's okay. I want to go ahead and start to label. So let me start by doing the quadrants. You know those already as 1, 2, 3, and 4. We know the signs. In the first quadrant, we have positive x's and positive y's. In the second, we have negative x's and positive y's. In the third, we have both as negative. And here in the fourth, we have positive x's and negative y's. That'll be important to help you figure out the patterns later. If we label our degrees, starting with those, this is 0 degrees, 90 degrees. Sorry, the phone is ringing. The next one is 180 degrees, 270, and 360. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is label our radians. So this one is 0 radians, pi over 2, pi. Remember, from 0 to pi is the top half of the circle. If I continue, I'm going to get 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi radians. The last thing I need to do is label my coordinates. So here, if I think about my x values, if r equals 1, I go over 1 and up 0 to get to that point there. This one, I would go up, over 0 and up 1. This one, I would go negative 1, 0. And this one would be 0, negative 1. So I go down 1. Okay, the next thing we want to do, let's go ahead and do all of our 45-degree angles. So I'm going to take my compass. I'm going to make sure that this little tick mark lines up with my 90-degree angle, that my center is right on my crosshairs. I'm going to put a mark at 30 degrees in this direction and 30 degrees in this direction. I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing on the bottom half of my circle. Oh, and I said we were doing 45. I've already marked the 30, so we'll go ahead and just take care of that one first. Now I'm going to go in between. I'm going to make my line here. And I'm going to trace it in that same color I did that first reference angle in, so that I can show you that basically we're putting these triangles inside of the unit circle, and that's how we get the rules that we do. See, this triangle fits right inside. For this other one, I'm going to do the same thing. Go ahead and trace my lines. Double them up in that color. And now I can put the color to the side. Again, we're going to start by labeling the degrees. So this is 30 degrees. This one is 150 degrees. This one is 210 degrees. And this one over here is 330 degrees. You'll notice that they're 30 away from each of my x-axis points. So 180 minus 30 is 150, plus 30 is 210. Same thing here, so we can kind of memorize those. If I talk about my radians, it's pi over 6, 5 pi over 6, 7 pi over 6, and 11 pi over 6. Again, I'm going back and forward by pi over 6. If I'm talking about my coordinates, okay, so how did I get there in terms of x and y? If I go to my 30 degree, oh goodness guys, I've messed up my colors. Okay, I'll have to fix that in a second. I'm talking about my 30 degree triangle here. My x value is square root of 3 over 2 and my y value is 1/2. Because if I do x, y, that gets me to that point. So that's square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2. And that goes all the way around the circle. The only thing I have to watch is to change my signs. You probably have noticed, or hopefully you have noticed, that all of the bottoms are always 2 in every single piece of the unit circle. Okay, I'm going to go back and fix this color real quick, and then we'll be ready to move on to our 45 as we were originally going to do first. And that brings up a good point. Really, it doesn't matter which piece you do first. I was just going to do the first one, so we stayed in order of your triangles. So that's not really that big of a deal. So now that one's green. Let's go back to my blue one, which was 45 degrees. Take your compass. Be sure you line it up. Mark those 45-degree angles. For me, that kind of goes over that radian piece that I just had. So I just need to watch that. That's okay. 45 and 45. Take my ruler and make those lines go all the way through the circle. And I'm just going to skip over that one so that I don't cross out that value there. Try to be sure I get the correct color. And that one goes all the way through. Connect this other piece for my other 45-degree angle. trace that one. Okay, and then let's go ahead and label. We're going to start by labeling our angles. So I've got 45 degrees. And then 45 degrees later would be 90. The next one is 135. 180 would be 45 degrees later. 225. 270 would be 45 later. 315. And 360. Okay, now we want to do our radians. So we're going to do pi over 4. This one's 3 pi over 4. 5 pi over 4, and 7 pi over 4. And you'll notice that those are just the odds. For 45 degrees, my coordinates are easy. They're all square root of 2 over 2. And if you want to go back and look at that reference triangle, that should be easy for you to see. Again, just be sure to flip those signs over as you move through. And let's do the last one. Let's do our 60-degree angles. Again, I'm going to go over some patterns tomorrow that should help you to memorize this. For now, we just want to be sure that we get it all down, that we're kind of understanding where these things are coming from in those reference triangles. We want to be sure we mark all of our 60-degree angles. It's as if I was fitting those triangles inside of this unit circle. I want to connect this one back down. And as you can probably see, I'm kind of trying to hurry because the bell has already rung for my next class. So I'm forgetting to connect some things, but you will be sure that you do that when you look at this. And the last thing is to do those angles, degrees, and radians. I've got 60 degrees, 120, 240, 300 degrees. My radians are pi over 3, 2 pi over 3, 4 pi over 3, and 5 pi over 3. And the last thing is to do those coordinates. So when I do my coordinates, I go back to my reference triangle. My x values are 1/2, and my y values are root 3 over 2, and that's true all the way around the circle. You may also notice, guys, that from here to here, I've just flipped my x and y. Okay, this one goes to this one, and that's all that I have to do to make sure that that stuff is memorized. Really, it should be fairly simple because there's not a lot of different information. It's just orienting it in the correct position. And that's all that there is to the unit circle. Eventually, you will need to have this all memorized so that you can utilize this information. If you have questions, I'll be happy to help you in tutorials.